Hello, everybody, and today I'm here to review episode 2 of Ted Season 2. So, this episode is where things get a little too crazy for Ted as he falls in love with a rich woman that Maddie was doing a job for, but Ted wants to go visit her and find various excuses to go see her and just make love. So I guess you could say this is Ted's first love interest since before Tammy Lynn. But this episode was hilarious because of how crazy things get. But it literally opens with Maddie and John and Ted going to the house. But once they see the lady come out, they just immediately fall in love. And Ted tries to find various ways to look at her, but he doesn't want to get caught being noticed by her until the next day when Maddie gets a call to get the check for the job. And instead of him showing up, the lady wants Ted to show up. And so Ted ends up showing up, and the two, do a lot of crazy things together. They literally go in a hot tub together. I can't say this on YouTube, but he uses a purple crotch as his way to make out with her in some way. But it turns out the lady is married and she wants to now have an affair because the husband isn't really a great guy. So Ted decides to go along with this anyway, but he feels he can't snoop around too much. So he decides to ask Blair for a car to go all the way to the house and do some more stuff. But Blair doesn't want to do it because it would be ruining the husband's life because of this affair. But Ted promises that he'll just do it anyway. But she refuses until they ask Maddie for it, and surprisingly he says yes. But speaking of him, he has a subplot. He's having a dysfunction sexually. He can't find a way to get turned on. And so he goes to a doctor about it and he tries to tell him, but he's just very confused. But of course, when he tells Susan about it, she is concerned too, that she literally goes to one of her salon friends about it and she tells Susan what to do, but not really much of it good advice. But later that evening, Ted decides to visit again, and this time he does wear the purple crotch, and it ends up going wrong as the husband shows up, and he, of course, finds out as he sees cigarettes and various beers in the room, and so he decides to find who the perv is. But of course, Ted ends up using the car of Maddie's car, and he's just completely cool with it. But John has to be the distraction for Ted. But he hits the horn, but it causes an old lady to get scared and drop all her groceries. But John decides to help her, but she ends up just screaming in his face anyway. So Ted ends up running out of the house. Probably the scene that made me laugh a lot is where Ted blends in as a teddy bear, and the man sees the bear, and he's like, "What the hell is this?" And he, of course, lets go of Ted, and Ted manages to escape, but he can't get the crotch off. But it's probably the funniest scene in the whole episode where they escape, and then the man decides to follow. And, of course, he has no speculation that it's Ted and John who are behind this antics. So he decides to confront Maddie about it, but he has no clue what he's talking about either, and he almost gets into a fight with him until he says he'd be willing to let Maddie go as if he watches him and Susan make out. And this, of course, causes Maddie to get turned on, and they decide to make out. And it's a very wild way, the way they do it. But the man watches, and it's just like, what the heck is he doing? But the episode ends with Ted being heartbroken as he shows up with flowers. But the lady decides that she doesn't want to date Ted anymore because she wants to actually fix things with her husband. and it leaves Ted crying and narrating, and it almost just sounds like Peter Griffin. It sounds like a dysfunctional Family Guy episode in live action. That's basically this whole episode. But this episode was definitely hilarious. Just Ted up to his crazy antics, where he tries to make out with some rich lady who doesn't like her husband. And the husband is even hilarious because he literally goes out of his way to almost confront Ted until he doesn't even think it's Ted at all. But this episode's probably an 8 out of 10. The next episode I'm excited to talk about is Dungeons and Dragons, a parody. So that will be next week's episode review. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.